Smash it.
It's been smashed.
Whack. Red light.
It's on. Red means go.
In this case, it does. It's confusing.
Ayla, when she was little, was just the goofiest personality I've ever met. But for a while, she used to chant, no means go. She'd just sit there on the ground and she'd chant, no means go. So I was like, where's that come from? But that was her way of just making it okay to do the things she was told not to do. She just decided that no meant go.
Huh. Well, red does mean go. So here we are.
Here we are.
So first thing I said to you when you popped on, I was like, you sound better. You look better.
Yeah. Yeah, I have made my first notable turn for the better in weeks.
And what did you say? Know what I'm going to do this weekend then? Well, what did you propose?
Well, I asked a question, but I said, I'm kind of just feeling like I'm going to go out on the trails. We just got a ton of snow and just dawdle for like 2 hours.
I think it sounds perfect. You're basically, it's going to be between 15 and 25 degrees or something, which is basically shorts weather for this time of year. You got it.
Yeah. And just like hack up all my lungs and snot rocket 1,000 times and get almost like that first week of rust. Try to get it all out in a day, but really slow.
I don't think it'll work that way, but I think you'll feel really good about getting time on foot. And even if it's slow time on feet, the trails in the snow give you the excuse in quotes to run slow. So you don't have to beat yourself up over metrics. You can still have a good productive little workout.
I shoveled yesterday because we got dumped on. Kids didn't even have school because it snowed so much in the like in a 2-hour stretch. We got probably 6 inches, and it's right when the busing needs to happen, and so that's why it got canceled. But so I did a lot of shoveling, and I alternated between like feeling lightheaded and really good. But I didn't cough a single time outside, and I stepped in the door, and then the warm air and everything, and I started coughing again. But I think just some outdoor time is the prescription for me right now.
Fresh air is the fix. And the cold doesn't make people sick. Germs and viruses make people sick. Cold does not make, maybe it weakens your immune system slightly if you're out there shivering for too long, but that's not true.
Cold and wet could, if you don't warm up ever.
Cold doesn't make you sick, you yahoos. So do we want to jump right in today, or do we have any things to chat out before doing such?
Well, I have nothing to chat out. I've done nothing with my life at all other than try to survive in this weird twilight zone all day long.
You're not painting an envious picture.
Wow, it's been since December 25th. I just keep complaining about this, but
do you and Lisa have a hot Valentine's Day date? That's this Friday.
Nothing says love or lust like pink eye.
I don't know what you guys are into, but
like, is there a quicker Valentine's mood killer than staring into gunked over eyes?
Well, the pink is fitting.
Yeah.
So okay. So you have no plans.
It's going to be a very cordial Valentine's Day.
Sounds nice.
What about you two?
So you don't have plans. You're going to have normal life with the kids.
No getaway. No. It'll be a family-based Valentine's Day.
Cool. We are going to stay at home and make like a nice little dinner and just have like a nice little night in, make something out of the ordinary. We're not going anywhere, I don't think. Although we did try and we did look. There's a couple places we'd like to go grab dinner and then have a night, but they're all, apparently we were late to that game. So yeah. Unless you want to eat dinner at 4:30 or 9:30.
Kind of sounds like it's up your alley.
It actually isn't far off. All right. So should we jump into this today?
Yeah. By request.
All the people been asking.
A lot of people talking.
A lot of people asking. No, I got a twinge of envy actually last week with your idea, not from your idea, but the fact that you grabbed the episode by the horns and went back and reflected and looked at past episodes and grabbed some that stuck out to you. I liked that concept. And then I really enjoyed our chat as well. Just like thinking back, like it's kind of reflective for us in the sense, like I think even when you say the word 500 episodes, which is what we did last Friday for our 500th, I don't know if it really sinks in how much work that was, how much time that was, how many things in our lives other than hopefully running do we do that consistently? And so I think it was worth making a second episode about the impactful interviews we've had over the years.
Yeah.
This is something we should celebrate.
Well, the only downside to longevity is that you forget things.
Yeah, it's true.
And even good things that you're surrounded by start to fade. And there are so many pieces that early on never left our mind. I think about certain episodes, and it felt like all the episodes rattled around in my brain all day long, being surrounded by people, because we went from our normal circle to inviting new people into our circle every week. And so that was an abrupt change in how many other people were kind of in our own little echo chamber here in a good way. And then it kind of gets lost in the wash a little bit. Like there's just a lot of it going on and you forget the individual lessons. And so this was just kind of cut through some of that ancient history. I liked it.
Yeah, or the conversations are like, you can bring up a guest we've interviewed, and right away, I can go back and think of the general sentiment of the conversation, but it's stored way in the back of my brain, and unless I was prompted, it wouldn't be brought to the front, right? And so I think that's what this is about, for me anyways.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull my list up.
Okay.
So that I can check things off if you get through them.
Okay. So here's what I did, folks. So first of all, if you haven't gone back and listened to last week's episode, would you title it, Brakken, 500 episodes of lessons, or
I think of reminders.
Reminders. And Brakken picked out, I don't know, did we cover maybe 10 to 12 guests?
Let's see. We hit 12.
Okay.
But some of them had multiple guests combined into one lesson.
Okay. Well, true. So we went and we basically, Brakken proposed the guest to me and said, what was the takeaway, Kirk? Like, maybe see if we were on the same page. And I'm going to do the same for you today. And we talked through the lessons that stood out to us, why they were important and what resonated and what stuck. So everybody I picked out is from pre-2023. So the ball can be back in your court, Brackenstein. We still have all of 23 and all of 24. I did not include that. So if you are a guest that listens, you are not included in my list yet. I had my list got long enough by the end of 2022 that I cut myself off.
Okay. How many do you have?
Let me count. I didn't even count. Probably in the ballpark of what you had. Let me see. Got to get out the old notes app. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
These coughs are at the point where, like, I don't have something brewing. They just explode out of me. They surprise me. I just take a breath. It doesn't get all the way in and it just shoots out. So I'm going to try to mute myself as much as possible today, but I've not been doing a good job on my athlete calls.
Honestly, I don't find it annoying at all. In fact, everywhere you walk in life, it feels like there's just coughing in the background. Yeah. So it's just like going to Walmart, which I haven't been to in a long time. But talking to you is like going to Menards would be the spot. So I have 13.
All right. And I have 9 remaining still from the first 100, 120 episodes. So we'll see if we have any overlap.
So did you get to 2023?
I cannot tell you. I doubt that now.
Okay. So I purposely cut myself off. So we have more of this to go through at some point.
Yes.
But this would not be in the last 2 years, 2+ years. This does not include any of that. Okay. So, and then I am looking at this, and some people on my list have had multiple appearances, so it's a little bit unfair to you because you may not know what I'm referring to. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, and I'm going to tell you, the first person on my list is Hunter McIntyre.
First person on my list remaining, Hunter McIntyre.
Okay. Love it. But between the time we started the podcast and the end of 2022, do you want to know how many times Hunter was on our podcast?
I guess it's 4.
4. So it can be a little muddy here with a couple of these.
Yeah.
So with that said, these are in sequential order, by the way.
Okay.
So the first on my list is Hunter McIntyre. And there's a laundry list of things about that man. But I want I want you to guess what led the way for me by picking Hunter. And this is Hunter McIntyre's, I believe, first episode that we did with him. We weren't promoting OCR stars. We weren't chatting. We were talking to Hunter McIntyre.
So there were two main things that I wrote out of the 6 or 7 we could take away. The first was surround yourself with experts. And the second was just absolutely believe it and perseverate over it until it exists.
Well, I very much like those two. Those aren't I have 2 and those aren't it.
Okay.
Uh-huh. But do you want to elaborate on those? Because they're your points?
Only briefly. The first is that Hunter is known as a very ego-driven athlete. He races with bravado. Sometimes beyond that, he speaks about other athletes either with disdain or rarely respect. He trash talks. He is just kind of an all-in person. But at odds with that is his ability to kind of just strip himself bare in front of an expert and say, teach me everything you know, and I will blindly follow it until I believe that I can do something different or until I feel like I've learned what I need to learn. And from the start, he's always done that. He did it with CrossFit. He did it with OCR. He's done it with paddling. He's done it with rowing, ski erg, high rocks. He just keeps bringing experts in and uses his resources in an egoless way.
He's all in on what his pursuit is.
Yeah. And he understands that there are people out there who know it better and that he should use them. And he pays them. He's not one of those athletes that says, and maybe he has, I don't know, but I know for years he was spending upwards of $1,000 a month on whoever he was working with to get their expertise. He wasn't saying, I'm me, you should be delighted to work with me. He's like, yep. What does it take to get your knowledge?
Very much so. Again, not my talking points, but those we could rattle on forever. To be honest, this is from the first episode with Hunter. It was he was one of our guests in the first 20, maybe. Is what I'm sort of. We got to know Hunter. And for those of you who haven't listened, because we haven't had Hunter on in a while, anything you see with Hunter McIntyre on it, click play and listen to it. You will be entertained for the entirety, irregardless of the conversation. He's just a treat in an obnoxious way, right?
Yeah.
So I couldn't believe he was off the list, but I understood why, because he was spread across so many episodes. Like, where do you start, right?
Right. And I have 9 remaining from last time that we didn't have time for, and he was the first next one up.
So the 2 things that jumped out at me that I think are worth circling back to, this was brought to light to me with a recent post of his after he had a tough showing at High Rocks Worlds. The way Hunter periodizes his year of training. And this combines with my second takeaway is how calculated and studied and purposeful that man is, and how we can all take lesson from that. Not just let's slap this at the wall and see how it goes or what sticks. There's purpose behind every time he puts his shoes on or walks into the gym, and it's filling a specific box for that time of year in relation to his long-term goal. And what brought it more to the forefront for me was his post about High Rocks Worlds, and he likes to show himself with his shirt off flexing. And at High Rocks Worlds last year, he was down 15 pounds from when he was world champ, and he was lean, mean, and gritty, but he actually lost too much. He was in a hole, right? And he was not available from an energy standpoint, and he lost some of his power, and he thought that would benefit him enough to improve his running, and he'd be a champ. And what happened to him at High Rocks Worlds?
He got beat.
Pretty good. Yeah. And it's because he left his very principle that he talked to us about and that he has preached over the years, and that is the bulk pony, for example, for his goals. He calls himself the bulk pony. Bulks. And he cuts and he periodizes, meaning I've grinded for 6-9 months. I need to go restack some bricks in the gym and regain some of that weight I lost and resaturate my cells because I know what's coming ahead and it's a grind. And that's most of our run seasons. Meaning, what do we just grind all the time? We're going to have no axe left at the end of this thing. It's time to rebuild the house so that we can endure the length of a season. Hunter McIntyre fell short and forgot his own lesson at Worlds last year. And he's not going to do it this year. And so I've been in this like strength rebuild this winter. In fact, I just made a post about it yesterday. I've been lifting an extra day each week. I've been lifting heavier, just trying to see like if I really chase times here later in the year, the strength is going to go, and I want to do my best to keep it as long as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking at your year in a big picture and say, I don't need to run my fastest today or tomorrow. What is going to get me to the start line available and ready to perform when it actually matters? And that's what he's a master of, and that's what really stood out to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. He was the first athlete I ran into that was on the time away from running will make me a better runner platform. He would go all in on a strength training block and he'd cycle easy with that. But his energy went towards the thing he was trying to improve now so that he could put energy towards the thing he needed to improve later. And coming out of college running, it just did not mesh with me. And I couldn't get on board with it. But I was fascinated by it, how you might take 2 months where you just really focused on strength and power output. Then he'd put running back in and he'd always arrive fast. And I think that's not how this works. And he was the first person that showed me, yeah, that is how this can work. And then you run into it with Killian Jornet, who then passed it down to John Albin, and they're skiing in the off season instead of running as much. And you see that the highest level of people at the pro level do periodize. And part of it is because their lifestyle allows them to, but it's hard to accept periodization when you're not ever feeling like you're fast enough in the first place. Stepping away seems like a step backwards. And he was one of the first people that kind of flaunted it in my face that you can do both. You can get faster while stepping away for a bit.
And he put on muscle and he put on body fat a little bit, and he would, have something to, in quotes, work off, right? When season came, just a little bit, right? He was always fit and in shape in appearance, but what was I going to say? But the thing about what you're saying is, yes, he like abandoned purposeful run training, but self-admittedly, he'd go out for 4 to 5 miles easy a couple times a week, and he'd be on his bike trainer, but the intensity was really low and the volume was really low. So his energy availability went to his lifting, just as you outlined. He didn't abandon it completely. He kept the skill there just enough, just like John Albin cross-country skiing in the winter said the same thing. I'll go out and run twice a week or something, but I'm mostly skiing. And I think that you just keeping it there so the transition back isn't awful. But knowing that there is a purpose to other focus, if you know what's coming is a grind and a big racing season and a long year that ends in October, you can't keep that right now. And I think above all else, you can't keep it now or have it now and keep it for that duration. And so I think that was a big takeaway that still sticks out to me with him to this day.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
And then the other thing, and you know him better than I do in that regard, but just a student. He looks like a barbarian Neanderthal on the internet, full of testosterone and bravado, but then he's at home with his bifocals on, reading and studying and actually having method to his madness. And I think most of us don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's in vogue now to look to the Nordic sports or multi-sport to see how do they train, how do they double, how do they triple. Hunter brought up the cross country and duathlon training like 8 years ago to me. He was studying this someone and their split of aerobic to anaerobic and how they were handling their off season and what kind of intervals they were focused on. And he was searching this stuff out almost a decade ago as a bro lifting male model. It's just he's wired differently. Love him, hate him, indifferent about him. He's a student of any game he enters, despite trying to show you that he's not outwardly.
Yeah. Be a student and think of the things today that I think the biggest thing, again, not to keep echoing it, is that you don't need to be in peak fitness year round. In fact, you will reach a higher peak if you aren't in peak fitness year round. When you do hit your peak, it will be of its highest. Correct.
Yeah.
So that's it. Is there anything else that jumps out with him that?
Just kind of wrapping it up, saying that I'm not even a huge proponent of periodization. classic periodization schedules for most people, but it is a way that works, and you can take it to extremes you wouldn't expect it to work with, and it will work. It's harder to get right, but he was just an example of if you do it all the way, a system will work. He's never done anything not all the way.
I mean, he moved to row full time, right?
Yeah.
And who knows what other things he's pursued full.
I mean, he moved out to Killington, Vermont when he was trying to win Spartan World Championships out there. He always does. He follows the training location and the coaching that he believes is the thing to do at that time.
Yeah. We could all call our shots a little more too. And I've been sort of embracing that, attempting to, right? Say, like, stating your intentions. I am going to, I intend to, I plan to. It's powerful, actually. Whether you actually have the confidence or not to back it up, putting things out in the world, for me at the stage of my career, is accountability. And it's in the back of my head when I don't want to press on that last rep. And it's an important internal motivator, even though I'm projecting it outwardly. So I actually envy that a little bit when athletes are a little bit boastful, because of the confidence you would assume they have. But I don't know. I think we could everybody's like a yeah, but, or I don't know, or I've been sick, or, my kids keep me busy, or everybody's got a yeah, but. They really do. I've never heard a yeah, but.
No.
Right out of him. And so it's like, it doesn't matter.
Well, and part of that with him comes from the fact that he's always fit. It may not be always fit for every task, but when you're that in shape all the time, you just get a bit of that in you. And then you also can transition from one type of fitness to the other the more fit you are and the quicker you can do it. But yeah, he's always had that ability to just be brash and say, I'm going to do this. And more often than not, he's in position to do it.
Yeah, you're going to start reading pre-race reports like, big race coming up, but still recovering from my Achilles injury 6 months ago. Or, I had a stress fracture when I was 13. Never know how that's going to come into play. Or it's been a rough year, but we're going to give it our best. Everybody gives themselves an out the week of the race, right? And I get so sick of seeing it, even if it's subtle and even if it's valid. It's just leave it. It's left off with him and other people too, but he's just like such a shining example of that. Nobody cares.
Yeah. It's everywhere. It used to be there were a few people in each sport that would make those posts, and now everywhere the pre-race excuses are crazy.
In case they perform bad, they already have a reason.
Afterwards, people go out of their way. Like even the Strava titles and descriptions now have it. Like, great race despite not feeling great, or can't believe I ran this well after getting sick Wednesday. Like, we don't need to see that.
I did see you did great. Half marathon.
You what?
And when I ran the half and I was morbidly sick, I think I did comment on that.
Did you?
Round. I think so. I have to go look now.
Well, then I have to take it all back to keep my marriage sound here.
Anyways, I think you all listening get the point. Go listen to Hunter McIntyre's episodes. We have a lot of them in the first 2 years, and they're all gold. That's it.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. All right. Next on my list. And I know he's on. If he's not on your list, I'm going to be very disappointed in you.
Let's see.
John Yatsko.
No Yatsko on here yet. Maybe I didn't get that far.
Yatsko was in the very beginning, pretty early.
Then I didn't put him on there.
Gasp.
I thought about the getting off trail, but I didn't put it on there because it flew in the face of Adam Buck's takeaway that I put on there.
That's fair. So next is John Yatsko. Now, John Yatsko, walk-on at Northern Arizona University. For any of you paying attention to the track and cross-country world, Northern Arizona University is a powerhouse in the D1 collegiate scene. And he was on the roster for many years, right? I think maybe all 4 or 3 years. He earned a spot eventually. Mm-hmm. Very accomplished. For me, it's 1 point of his. That's 1 point, pure and simple, amongst all of them.
Okay.
Any idea?
No.
Try me. Come on.
One takeaway from his episode?
Like the one that I want to bring up. There's
maybe the power of surrounding yourself with a team. But no,
that's valid. The main point that stands out to me, and I remind myself of this somewhat often, is one of his. Am I get choppy to you, by the way, in video right now?
Slightly.
Are we on a delay? Yeah, you are too. It feels like we're in a video game. Is don't train too hard, so it's available on race day. I don't know if maybe this doesn't stand out to you, but
I don't remember that part from that episode.
One of part of the conversation was, I never sell my soul in training, and it will be there on race day. The sentiment that you need to turn yourself inside out in order to progress, or you left something on the table, or you're not maximizing your training. He's like, no, I think you should always have reps in the tank or speed in the tank. And then when it's time to race, like, you're going to be loaded and ready to fire, right? Versus burnt and maybe unavailable. So he said that was how he approached training, like from a 10,000 foot view. You don't remember that part of the conversation? That's interesting.
No. I'm embarrassed.
It wasn't like we didn't spend a half hour on it, but that part for me is important because we glorify the grind. We glorify hero workouts, and we talk about them. We suggest doing hero workouts every occasion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people are racing their workouts.
Yeah.
And aren't necessarily satisfied. And maybe, as some people have said, like leaving their race in workouts.
Yeah.
And then they're not there on race day.
I firmly believe that you only have so many A+ efforts in you. You may have A+ fitness often, but the ability to get all that fitness out requires a unique stew of circumstances. And if you find yourself in that position in training, it's really, really hard not to push the button and take it. Like, you have to be feeling relatively okay, be gaining momentum in that moment, and have some sort of motivating factor that's not typically there that makes you want to just rip skulls in that moment. And sometimes you get that in the middle of a run. And so how do you lean into that without taking it fully is really difficult for people. And you need those on race day. John Albin talked about this as well. You can only go deep to the bottom of the well so many times mentally. And I experienced this. I learned this hard in high school. I had a really fantastic, and I've talked about this, I had a fantastic human being as a head coach, but he really didn't know much about running. And the mental side of running was, he had never run. It was beyond him. Racing, it was beyond him. And that's fine. That wasn't his role. But as a result, I raced every single race like it was life or death. And by the end of outdoor, with like 4 races to go, I remember just thinking always, where do I go from here? Like, I just don't even know how I'm going to do that again. And I'd start having dread at the start line rather than excitement. In my senior year, this isn't bragging, this is just showing where I was at. I was our double conference champ in the mile and the 2 mile. And I could barely get myself to warm up for those races. I was just so burnt out, and I PR'd in both races. So fitness was there. I ran my fastest mile and my fastest 2 mile in a 3-hour period. And I was considering quitting partway through each race. Like, my body was there. My fitness was there. I PR'd, but my mind was just so tired of, it's going to sound kind of like arrogant, but of being so darn tough. I was a tough competitor, and I wasn't better than everyone around me. So every race was like would come down to the last 40 meters. It took all of me every time. And I was just burnt by the end of it. And I didn't qualify for state. I was the fastest seed, and I couldn't get through regionals, or I got through regionals. I couldn't get through sectionals. I was just so tired mentally. And that's not just teenagers. Like, that's adults too. There's only so many times you can burn it all the way down to the ground and then do it again.
I think that becomes even more true the longer the race or the more frequent you're racing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be death by 1,000 cuts, meaning you're just racing every weekend and pushing at 95%, but eventually you can't even get to 95% anymore. Or it can be like leaving your soul on the trail in a 50K. Might take you 3 months before you can even get there again.
Yeah.
Because the effort was so damaging. Well, physically, of course, but mentally. But I think just extrapolating that into then the training side of things being like, it is cool to push. It is respected to push and work hard. All we see are these way too cool, fancy Instagram reels of freaking ski ergs and rowers. Oh my God, if I see another video of somebody on the stupid ski erg, I'm going to lose my mind trying to look badass. The High Rocks world. It's the same videos, rinse and repeat for all these athletes. Anyways, looks like everybody's just inside out, right? Glorified grind. And of course, there's a time and place to feel what the race is going to feel like, but it's very infrequent. And you look at the pros, and John ran in what's called a pro level collegiate system.
Yep. They're a pro pipeline.
Pro pipeline. They say 90% of a collegiate coach's job is holding their athletes back. You watch these videos on All Track Access or Flow Track. Too fast, Grant. Grant, slow down. Too fast. Hold it back. Don't kick home on this rep. Chill, chill, chill. The only time you start hearing people say like, all right, I want you to dig and hurt and embrace it, maybe they're getting to peak season and they're finally ready to. Go watch those videos. What are they telling them all the time? Mostly it's
trying to get them to slow down.
Chill, right?
Yep.
So we can kind of take that lesson, and that's an exaggerated version of what John spoke about. I'm taking his words and running with them, but
yeah,
that sentiment for me is what stood out.
And it's not don't work hard.
Correct.
It's work appropriate. And early on, it's hard to balance. You have to be pretty fit to be able to trash yourself multiple times in training. Like it's an earned, privileged mistake. Early on, the act of running is so tiring, you can't go deep to the well. But eventually you can handle the load well enough that you can overswing and not realize you're overswinging because you're just so darn fit. So it's a privileged place, but it's the fitter you get, the easier it is to screw it up.
You know what? That's a great point. This is the fitter you are, the more probable this problem happens to you. Yep. Every run's a hard run if you're out of shape. And you're not fit enough to sustain true systemic damage because your body putzes out on you. And so even though you worked hard and you failed, in quotes, if let's say you're ramping up or you've come off an injury or out of shape, that's not what I'm really talking about. Yeah, that's a great point. It's more like the grinding it out and I can do 2 more reps when you really shouldn't and don't need to. It's blurry, right?
Yeah.
But it's a great point.
Early on, you say do 16 to 20 by 400, and they're like, I had to stop at 14. I'm so sorry. And fit people are like, I had to pull the plug at 22 because I was like, I think I could have done more, but that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. And it's not clear, right? Like, where is the line and how do I stay below it? It's not unless you're testing blood lactate and super dialed on heart rate or pacing, like you're going to wonder if you are on the right side of it sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's going to be, I'm doing it right now, but just be like, I could do 2 more reps, or I could run this 5 seconds a mile faster, but today I choose not to, because I also understand I have work again in 4 days that also needs to be productive. And just getting from one of those to the next available is more important than being a hero and then being trashed for a week. That's what I think.
And this topic kind of flies in the face of some of the things we've talked about, which is we've had like, sometimes you need to swing the hammer hard. There's a time and a place for hero workouts, but the point is that they must be prescribed. If you're going to the well, it must be because you're supposed to.
Right.
And if you're really not sure, it's one of those, if you have to ask, you can't afford it. Like, race day, you're supposed to. On a day where your coach says, or your training schedule says, this is a big one, you're supposed to. But some random Tuesday is not the time to leave your race right there. And we see this in the pro ranks a lot. Anyone who goes on Let's Run or any of the running forums knows that people are notorious for posting pros Strava workouts. Like, did you see this workout so-and-so just did? Unreal. What is this worth in a race? And 9 times out of 10, that person never runs what it's worth.
Yeah.
The big thing right now is there's a U.S. men's marathoner who has essentially run his PR in training like a dozen times in the last year or two and doesn't really get any faster on race day. And that's the common occurrence, that the better you do in terms of impressive training, pace-wise, the less likely you are to nail something on race day. It's the people who show up with a reserve, a little bit of uncertainty. Those are the people that crush it.
That's an interesting thing to think about. What about, and then we'll move to the next one. What about those days, those magical days you go out for progression long run and you're progressing and you're feeling yourself and it's a good day. Like it is a good, one of those days that you dream of that you have not often enough. Be like, I want to work today. Is it okay to kick it home and run? Like, or is it even on those days, right? When everything's aligned, you still need to keep things in reserve. That's a tough one, right? Because when you feel good and you know you could this could be my best mile repeat session or my best 3-2 float session, and then you purposefully choose for it not to be. That's interesting.
There's a couple pieces to this. I think this is like a whole episode, but I'm going to try to be brief if that's even in my.
And you didn't even know what I was referring to with John, and here we are.
The first is that the newer you are to running, the more I think it's okay to lean into certain things. Like, hey, I just got a 5K PR in training. Like, great. Have fun with that. That's cool. But the further you get into it, you almost don't want to do it because you may never replicate it again. Like if you find yourself, I can have my best 3-2 float ever, but I have 2 or 3 more in this cycle to do. I'm not going to be able to dial this circumstance up again. That's the day you just finish it feeling effortless and go on to the next one. Could you have your best workout ever? Yes. But what if that ruins all future of this style of workout for you? And then if you do find yourself, the long cut down is, I think, the easiest one to say yes to. Sometimes you're just feeling great and you just want to run hard. Like, okay, go for it. Do it. But now we have to treat this recovery like you just raced. Like there's a price to pay and we better pay it here.
Yep.
But I don't like people. Sometimes that's true. I don't like when people shoot for a workout PR because it's not necessarily indicative of your progression and it ruins your metric moving forward.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. Okay, we're going to have to stop ourselves here.
Okay.
Because this could become a Training Tuesday and maybe it should, but like sometimes PRing a workout, like my fastest average for 3-minute repeats is absolutely indicative. You can't fake it. Like you have improved and you will race better than you ever have. Then sometimes it's I chose to race the workout in hindsight. And that's the only reason, because I knew I was close to my best session and I reached for it. Or you just get better at the workout.
Yeah. I think it's a study in maturity and patience, people that have it and don't use it.
Yeah. Or the people who, like, did you have a couple people in college who were like workout duds and race heroes? We had 2. And I think they're just maybe like kind of cool chilling. They don't get that competitive and they're fine being semi-uncomfortable, not all the way uncomfortable. And then on race day, they get the extra juice they need and they're available. I don't know. In
one of the more recent Bond movies, there's a line that says, the license to kill is also a license not to kill. And the implication is like, sometimes you hand that out to people that you know will know the difference. And that's how I look at those days. Like sometimes the license to PR is also the license not to PR today. You could today. I see that, but you're going to want this later.
I'm trying to figure out how to, let's say the word periodize, but it's not plan my racing season.
Yeah.
And a good part of me is actually thinking of jumping in some of these local, we have like Getting Geared 10K and Brian Craft 5K and some other things that are just like good competitive road races and treating them as a hard workout, but not planning to go to the well to help my progress. Where I want to run hard and I'll probably finish pretty hard, but I'll try to run within myself. And I'm wondering if that would be a good route to running a faster 5K at the end of the year. I'm debating, but the whole goal is to not go turn myself inside out. The goal is to go use it as a tool. And so I'm waffling with that same kind of concept right now.
Yeah.
That's why you see the collegiate system, like the NAU guys, pack run all the way until conference. the best guys could be 30 seconds ahead on their squad with their pack running because it's, you're not leaving. We need you available for later. Let's stop ourselves.
Okay. Onwards.
Okay. All right. Next. DeRosa. DeRosa. I have one major takeaway.
Okay.
Do you want to take any of your takeaways? Like, I think last episode you handed it to me and I took a guess or my takeaway, and then I said what I wanted. You said what you wanted.
My takeaways from Coles was one, just like what can be done with consistency and ultimate discipline. But the second was that there are multiple ways to doing something. That guy was doing Metcons and some sort of WOD based workout, like at least 4 to 5 times a week. But he kept things a little bit more in a vacuum that way. That's how he got a lot of his compromise running done. But he was just every morning, 6 a.m. Every morning I'm doing this every single morning. I'm just never going to miss.
Yes. Very true. Yeah. That stands out to me big time. It's in route to what stood out to me.
Okay.
Dude was constantly microdosing. He was hitting a session in the morning. Then he had 25 minutes at lunch, if you recall, and he did something then. And then I don't know. And Cole, I'm sure, has plenty of long efforts, but the power of frequency of sessions when you don't have hours in a row every day. Mm-hmm. You remember that? He was, we asked him about his day, right? Like, outline your training day or your week. And he was very happy to share. And it was more like, it was like broken training.
Yeah.
But it was consistently broken training.
And I think he also said it gets so hot during the day. Like, I'm just not going to run for 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. He's down in Florida, right?
Yeah.
DeRosa, how many time Masters and age group champion in Spartan, the Spartan arena. He's sort of the elite, but he's really the age group hero is how I look at him. Like, he's the old guy killing it still.
Yep.
Right? What is he, in his late 40s? 50 now?
It's hard to tell. He's so fit. He's bald. It's like he could be 35. He could be 55. Who knows?
I want to look at this. Could I find this somewhere easy enough?
Oh, I'm sure.
Let's see.
I guess he's 48.
49? 40, 49? Somewhere in there. All right. Anyways, really it was about like another way to look at it, squeezing it in, greasing the groove concept of 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there. Mixed modality training always to stay available as an aging athlete. And he's been one of the best on the age group scene in particular. But mostly it was the microdosing thing, which I look at it completely differently. I'm like, no, I want big, huge workouts that are super taxing. And my quality sessions on Tuesdays end up being 90 minutes of running. Like, it can be done other ways.
Yeah. Yeah. He's kind of like the opposite of Hunter sometimes, in that they both are great reminders that if you're going to choose a system, not opposite, but opposite sides of the same coin. If you're going to choose a system, it takes ultimate commitment to that system. You have to see it all the way through. If you're going to do smaller workouts more frequently, you have to do that and do it. Too often we're like, oh, I microdosed all my workouts this week. I just hit a ton of 40. And then you look back, you did 3 of the days. It wasn't as often as you thought. And the other days were just singles. And I was like, if you're going to do it, you have to still get your volume in. You still have to, like, the frequency has to be absolute. He sees his all the way through, the same way Hunter sees his all the way through. High mileage, low mileage, big workouts, little workouts. The plan must be followed for the plan to reveal whether it's useful or not. And he's proven that his plan is useful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it, I think. And Cole, I think you listen, at least on occasion, I think it was like every day. He did something in the morning, he did something at lunch, and there's many days maybe where something happened in the evening as well. Yeah. But it wasn't just like, oh, I do this a couple times a week. It was like that was part of his system, to your sentiment. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was it. Just that whole concept. I don't have time, but you do have an hour lunch, and you can sneak out and put your running shoes on in combination with a quick run or a lift in the morning. And here you go. 4 miles is better than no miles. And if that's what it is for you in your life, that's great. Do it consistently and you'll be surprised at how far it takes you.
The people that there's never a decision, there's just an action. Like, it's a non-negotiable are always those people where I look at and say, if I just had a fraction of that, how much more would I have accomplished? Not saying that I have the talent to be all world, but just with the talent I have, how much more would I have gotten out of it if I was just one of those people that never had a decision to make? People that, all right, here are the facts, and now we just get it done around that. Those people always just fascinate me. And I'm sure everyone wavers, but they don't appear to ever waver.
Yeah, they don't appear to, but the internal rhetoric. Get it done. Your feelings don't matter. That's what it comes down to. I don't give a shit about your feelings.
And I lump you in that camp.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't care about my feelings either. Yeah. Or yours when it comes to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I pretend to for some of my athletes. I try my best to care about their feelings, but deep down I don't.
But for you, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's how, not will.
It can be a compulsion, though, at the same time.
Right.
And it probably is for a lot of us.
Everything has its, downside to it, but it is a powerful tool to have.
That was DeRosa. He was a good interview as well.
Yeah.
One of our best, most responded to episodes from the early years, DeRosa. First year, I think we talked to him. All right, this is the big one. You could take it many ways. I'm going to take it a direction that's not fair to you because you're never going to guess it because you don't know this man the way I know this man. Stephen Menya.
Okay.
Tell us who Stephen Menya is.
Stephen Menya is just like an all-around impressive individual. Grew up in a small village in Africa, in poverty, kind of ran his way to the United States as a 400-meter runner and hit crazy culture shock here, and now is a successful businessman in the Twin Cities. That's way oversimplified, but that's the Cliff Notes.
Remember a story about he was on campus and this squirrel, as he called it, was on the bike path or the sidewalk, and he tried to get this squirrel off the bike path, and it wasn't a squirrel, it was a skunk.
Never seen a squirrel or a skunk before.
Until he got sprayed.
And he only owned one shirt at the time.
And one tie, and somebody had to buy him a jacket because he didn't know how cold it would be because he thought it was warm everywhere.
Yeah.
Stephen Menya is not my business partner, but he owns the facility I collaborate with. I rent space from Stephen. I've been partnered with his place, Lions Gym and Wellness Center, since 2011. So it's been 14 years I've known this guy. He's exactly 10 years my elder, so he's 52. You would never guess it. But he literally showed up to a dirt track race, and he was the towel boy, the laundry kid. If you remember, he was the one who took the athletes who were for real. He took their, when they got their warm-ups off and their shoes and put on their spikes, he was the one who ran it and organized it and brought it to the finish line. And they had a relay member that was unavailable or sick or injured. And didn't show up. He had a burger and he was sick, right?
Yep.
That's what it was, a burger. And Stephen, they said, well, you're going to run then. And Stephen went and turned heads. And then he was basically on their 4x4, Kenya's 4x4 for the 1996 Atlanta games, had qualified, and he tore his hamstring and never ran in the games. And that was it for him. He was that was it. But you don't know this about Stephen. So
can I take a guess just to see if I know you at all? If I've listened to any shred of evidence you shared over the years?
I don't know if I've shared this, but yeah, sure.
I think you're going to say the fact that he just is never sitting still or satisfied, that he finds something new and masters it completely all throughout his adult life.
Probably the most impressive thing about him is that's not my point.
Okay.
He became a chiropractor. Then he became a doctor of physical therapy. He now has his pilot's license and can drive his family all around. He had piano lessons until he mastered it, and saxophone lessons until he mastered it. And now he's bored and wants to do the next thing. That is all true.
I struck out.
Stephen Menya hates running more than anybody I know. Hates running with a passion. vehemently. Stephen Menya's way out was his feet. And he was given a gift I don't think he wanted, but it was his only ticket to a better life. And in fact, because of him coming over here, everybody but one of his 10 siblings is now in the United States. He started that. Yeah, his brother's a doctor. His other brother, I mean, some of them are very successful over here. But the point being is it became his job to perform. And because of it, and I think his poor end, he hates it. It was forced upon him, or he wasn't pursued out of joy. It was pursued out of necessity, and it turned something that could potentially be really good, and it turned it into hate. And he hates it. He hates everything about it. And I think somebody so talented, and it was the reason he's here. He tells me all the time how much he hates it. He knows I go run, and he's like, I hate that. Why did you do that? Anytime I bring it up, he hates it. You get the point. It's interesting just to see it, the level in which he ran. But if you start thinking about the why he did it, there is the right and wrong reasons to do things. And it was right for him at the time, but it was at the cost of his relationship with it. He will never run again. And I just think that's like an interesting thing to put like into perspective. Us who choose to put our shoes on and do it for health reasons or for social reasons or whatever. He did it so he could have a roof over his head and a scholarship and a degree. So much so that the people who chase it professionally, not saying you fell out of love with it or hate running, but it's different. And so some of us that aren't very good are the lucky ones because it can be what it will be. And for him, it wasn't, never was. And so him and I have side conversations about this that, again, this is totally unfair for you to know, but I just thought I wanted to direct people back to his episode because it's one of my favorite we've done of all the years. And so I want people to go listen to it. And they won't get that out of that episode, but that's it.
The why matters.
Do you think it changed your relationship with running? Well, of course it did, but like any negative ways when you pursued it as a pro? Any long-term effects, I should say?
No, because I didn't start loving running until about that time. Pursuing it as, quote unquote, as my pro lifestyle for a while changed the way I'll forever perceive my running accomplishments or what's good or what's acceptable for fitness. But the act of running, I think it actually enhanced. But it changed my relationship with racing. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It is really difficult for me to just jump into races now. It used to be really easy to do that, but I just cannot help but have like a visceral reaction to not being in shape to win or to compete, to be competitive. If that's not there, it just like, it doesn't. Well, that one exploded out. Didn't know that was coming. If I don't have a chance to be successful, it doesn't excite me. And unfortunately, success has just been distilled down to being competitive in the race. That's probably the only thing it quote unquote ruined. But no, the act of running, it only made me appreciate more.
Okay. So net positive, maybe.
I think it's been a net positive. Yes.
Cool. That's
great.
I
don't think I would be 37 years old and looking forward to this fresh snowfall, getting out onto the trails and just running on the snowy trails had I not tried to pursue it post-collegiately. I don't think I would have got to this point.
I'm trying to think for myself. I don't know.
Or running threshold intervals at 10% incline on my treadmill. I can't see myself looking forward to doing that without having pursued it.
You certainly understand it all better. And when you understand it better, you can, I don't know. I can justify anything now because I can understand the why. I can understand running 10-minute pace on a certain day because I'm thrashed and I understand the why to go easy now versus before I had to go grind every day because I didn't know any better and I was a wimp if I didn't.
He was also a sprinter.
Yeah, 400 meters.
The only pleasant aspect of sprinting are like the first 5 to 6 seconds of any rep. Because you're running so fast that it gets really miserable really quickly and you're exhausted at the end of each interval, even in training. Like that feeling of running fast and free is the only part that a sprinter really enjoys unless they love the process. And so a 400-meter dash runner coming from sprinting up to that is a miserable existence. I could see very easily not wanting to run at all because of that. Plus, sprinters usually are terrible joggers. Their muscles don't know how to do that well, and so it's not pleasant whatsoever. So I understand that as much as I can understand his situation, which is only partially.
And I never actually have talked to him specifically about his way out. Like, okay, so you tore your hamstring. What happened? Like, were you just thrown into the trash because there's a list of how many other Kenyans, and if you can't provide, like, you are no value to us anymore? Like, I'm wondering if there was something we don't know about his exit from it, right? I'll ask him. I'll see him this afternoon after we're done. I go back into the gym and I'll look. But go back and listen to Stephen Menya. Sometime in our first year or two, his audio is a little rough in the beginning, sort of like the Derek Rubis, but then you just settle in and you're like, oh, okay. Then you forget that that's a part of it.
My family references the leopard story probably once or twice a year still.
Yeah. He's doing the noises and you're like right there with him when he tells
like, that's stories. A man who's been near a live leopard in the wild.
Yeah. All right. We may not get through this. So
nope. Never do.
Next on my list, I think you're going to particularly enjoy this one. Lisa Kraker. I would have picked her out if she wasn't your wife.
That's many ways to take that statement.
I mean it in all the ways, probably. Where do you think I'm going with this one? This one you better think through here. This is not from Lisa's Run These Streets episode.
Right. I can't look at her through anything other than knowing her, that bias. So I'm going to say either the fact that the way you find the sport can define the way your relationship with running is, or her running for happiness and health and stability, using it as a medicine.
Part of the latter.
Okay.
As part of it. So I resonate with that quite heavily.
Yeah.
It's better than therapy or drugs. Not that that's how she spun this, but those are my words.
Yeah. Lisa, we're not saying that you need therapy or have abused drugs, because I wouldn't dare tell people that.
It's not where I'm going with it. But Lisa Kraker is Brakken's wife. In case I'm assuming most of you know, and she's been on now 3 times. I think we had her host a Q&A once or twice. We did an episode exclusively on her and about her, and then when she ran the city streets of Milwaukee.
You also had her on Getting to Know Me through her.
Oh yeah, that's right. We still got to get.
Still waiting on Jess.
I know Jess is never home and during the day when we record, but so the biggest thing is we sit here and we pound into people's throats every week how to be competitive, how to race your best, how to be a superstar. And that's how we define it. And it couldn't be further what Lisa wants, yet she listens to our podcast every week, I believe. Lisa doesn't run to stand on podiums, and Lisa doesn't run. Does she care maybe about getting to the finish line faster? I don't even know. But it's just about, like, for the sake of what it does for her day to day and how it makes her like a better human being throughout. And I resonate with that very much so. And it's a reminder. Who was it that we spoke to that said, your tagline was get to the finish line faster? And they're like, I don't want to. That's not the point for me.
Diane?
No, Aaron Azar or somebody, I think.
Yeah, that was her.
Anyways, it was like, I just want to survive. I want to go, and it's like, we are literally missing an entire sector of our audience at times. Like, what about, I just love running, and a lot of those details aren't as important to me.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time, near impossible time, looking at it that way. I understand the therapy side and the anxiety side and helping with just clearing my head and making me a better human being, which it does because it evens me out. But that part, in addition to her relationship with it as it being it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I was just trying to look up when the last time she ran a race was, and I couldn't find the result that I was looking for. But the last time I wrote a training plan for Lisa was preparing for the Cellcom Marathon in Green Bay in probably 2013.
Okay.
It's been 11, going on 12 years since I wrote a training plan for her, despite it being the thing I do every single day for a living, because it just doesn't work. It kills her joy for running. And when she gets in a rut, when I get in a rut, she knows by now that what to tell me. She said, you should just go to a quality day, or you should go do a time trial or sign up for a race. Those are the three things that get me out of a rut in training. And when she's in a rut, she needs a new thing to pursue, a new neighborhood to run, a new street to find, a new mileage goal or something, but it has nothing to do with intensity. She just wants to run easy to moderate, semi-quick every single day of her life. Just wants to run and be free, and that's it. She doesn't want anything else. She sometimes thinks she wants other things, but as soon as she starts doing them, her mind and body tell her this isn't what true happiness is. True happiness for her is running 7 to 9 miles every single day, moderately slow or moderately fast, depending on the day, but just running the stride that feels good. No periodization, no structure. She wants to run 40 to 46 miles per week on the dot every single week for the rest of her life.
With no external payoff as far as outside eyes might see.
Nope.
Right?
Can I ask you? So mad when Strava says she's losing fitness. She gets so mad when it doesn't understand what she's doing with her running. She just wants to do her thing and be told that's fantastic.
Asking this question might get you in trouble. I don't know.
Okay.
And sorry, Lisa, if this is too nosy, but do you think a lot of this is driven by her fear of failure when it comes to competition because she had some bad experiences?
Yeah, I don't know if it's fear of failure or fear of losing. I don't know which one it really is, but they're kind of the same, but 100%. And she'll say that. She had a terrible start to her running career. Not to spoil her episode, but if you haven't listened to it, you've had a couple of years. She started running just to stay in shape in college, didn't run in high school. And they, because of Title IX, didn't have enough women to field the full men's team. And so they needed more. And she was just drafted onto the women's team.
Didn't they see her running on campus or something and she got recruited?
There was a flyer that was for a running club. Like, do you like running? Come run with us. It didn't say run club, but it was like, are you a girl who likes running? Come find out more on Wednesday. And she showed up, and it was the cross country coach. And she signed up on the line, and she's like, all right, what now? And he gave her a locker. He's like, all right, you're on the team. That was it. And she's like, I don't really think. He's like, it's going to be fine. Just run with us for a bit. You can always stop if you want. And that was it. She was on the cross country team in college. And then like 2 weeks later was their first meet. And it was Roy Griak. And she took dead last or second last at Roy Griak. Huge invitational, challenging course, stud athletes, and was miserable. Went out with her pack of people for the first mile and then utterly fell apart and, jogged the last 4. And then that's how the entire season was, because she was doing a college sport without having done the high school sport. It went how you'd expect it to go. But from that point on, she just has extreme race anxiety. And she's a competitive person. She does not like losing at anything. And
she played tennis. What did she play? Did she play a different sport?
She did a couple of years of volleyball.
Volleyball. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So yeah,
that's all.
Huge race anxiety. Massive.
So there's one way, which is keep rubbing your nose until it hopefully goes away, or just accept that I enjoy this for what it is without that.
And I tried one until I realized that wasn't showing her love. I signed her up for her birthday or Christmas/birthday. It was an overwinter 6 5K running series. It was a 5K a month for 6 weeks over winter. And her anxiety got worse every race. So during the last one, she was like dry heaving and almost vomiting during mile 2, running at a slower pace than she would run on her average training run. Our 5K PR is 20:36, set in a run with me where we got in an argument in the middle of the run. She never run faster than like 20:58 or 21:10 or something in a race because she has so much nausea and anxiety that she can't even run her normal running. This was during like a 6-mile run. She and I got in an argument and she split 20-36 in the middle of it.
Hate
like,
running.
She's probably a 19 flat 5K runner. Can't run under 21 minutes because of anxiety.
Good conversation we had with Lisa.
Yeah. So go doing it for the right reason and just embracing that.
Anything else you want to add? Was Lisa on your list?
No. I didn't get that far.
Was she that far in? You can say that.
Oh, yeah. It took a long time for her to come on this podcast.
Well, it wasn't after January 1st, 2023.
I'll look up right now what episode she was.
You don't need to do that.
Oh, I'm gonna. You start the next one.
Well, I'm gonna start it, and then I just want to see where you go with this one.
Okay.
Because this... Oh, 1 second. This was one of our more interesting conversations we've had over the years.
Okay.
Interesting, I think is the exact right word. I'm trying to find another word that's better, but interesting.
This is interesting. Sorry, I'm going to cut you off. AI gave me a summary of what Google AI of what she's been on. Episode Lisa discusses her journey from college to becoming a full-time athlete. Well,
yeah, well.
Episode 62 was Lisa.
Yeah.
But definitely didn't journey to become a full-time athlete. Thanks, AI.
Anthony Kunkel.
Anthony Kunkel. Did you have a strong takeaway from Anthony Kunkel?
Yes.
All right. So the two strongest takeaways I had from Kunkel that were positive were, one, the power of self-belief, and two, the power of going all in and surrounding yourself with a community of like-minded individuals.
Yes and yes.
But not yes.
You're very true. I mean, all in is the headline to the thing.
Okay.
All in is he moved to Durango, has a house in the mountains, organized a training group, and they live and breathe it every day. And such has come his, I would say, ultra success more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
The levels to this that I didn't know existed until we spoke to him. The use of psychedelics for the sole purpose.
The levels of all in, you're talking?
Yes, the levels of all in.
Yeah.
The use of psychedelics and nesting, his words, not mine, to improve your running performance and provide clarity. Microdosing and tapering and on and off and cycling caffeine, whittling off so that 25 milligrams calculated out is going to provide me with X result. And then I know on race day, when I take 225 milligrams of caffeine, I am guaranteed to have a good day because I'm microdosing and pulling back. He's tinkering in a lab with what he is ingesting and putting in his body or breathing in or whatever the heck. There were many levels to his approach that most of us never even entertain. And he openly talked about some of that stuff, the shrooms, and this wasn't like let's screw off. It was calculated and by design, and is still fascinating to me. And I don't know what my takeaway is from it, other than there are many kinds of weeds, I guess there's a pun in there, that you can dive into when it comes to this, and he's there. Chemicals in the body, giveth and taketh away with purpose to provide a result.
I'm trying to decide how I want to respond to this.
It was the back half of our conversation with him.
Yeah. This episode is all about the positive things we took out of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he
the
was
major
one of
takeaways.
Yeah, but we've only done positive so far. I guess we've had guests where we did not have a positive takeaway from our conversation, even though we never announced it out loud.
We had some interviews that were downright uncomfortable.
We've had some uncomfortable interviews. We've had some unpleasant interviews. Very, very few. I will say over 500, we've had less than 10 bad interviews. We've probably had less than 5 bad interviews, and we've probably had less than 10 where I just didn't love the conversation. This was one of them. I like talking to Anthony. I didn't want to release this episode.
Because of the contents.
Because of the message. Because he is all in. And under the umbrella of all in, everything is acceptable. But just from a standpoint of what I stand for and against, I couldn't get down with most of his message. I could get down with his why. It was the what that bothered me. And I believed that he was playing in the gray area of what is allowable, and openly he was into the dark area, and who knows what else exists under that rug. And I think that the explore every single option for gaining performance advantage is not a stance any athlete should advocate. So I had trouble with this episode. Again, I enjoyed talking with him. I was not comfortable putting this out into the universe.
I was, because I definitely get what you're saying, by the way, without question. So more like me and you and I, me and you, however you say it, you and I don't know everything, but we know a lot, okay, about this space in particular. I learned some new stuff that day.
Yes.
Like that I just wasn't aware of. And I agree, I'm not going to go to those lengths, but it was just like eye-opening to me to understand there is a different world and approach.
Correct.
That I wasn't on my radar. And so, and he's maybe a little bit, he's polarizing because of it, but it was just interesting.
It was.
That's all. Interesting is it. And that's the word I said to preface this. Interesting.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all. And I personally put the episode out. I decided that, like, listen, people are free to make their own minds up. He has so much good in there that it can outweigh the stuff I don't agree with. We put it out. Like, by doing that, we supported the message in a way. And that was what I didn't love. I just don't love the idea that someone could listen to that and say whatever it takes is worth it, because that's what all in looks like for someone who wants to be a pro. And some of the things he does, I wholeheartedly disagree with. And there are people that are attracted to that. And we've seen it since. People have moved out there and gone all in. And I've received message of people like, oh, I'm doing this and it's so awesome. And I'm like, I'm happy for you that you're happy, but no, that's not the thing you're doing right now is not so awesome. So it's very judgy of me, but I don't support the at all costs approach to things. And that was a takeaway from it, that here's someone willing to talk about everything many of the things he's doing with confidence, but his utter belief in the infallibility of what he's doing. He is just absolutely convinced that he's right and that it's worth it. And he's going to keep playing mad scientist, and the payoff's there. And that thinking is what makes people great sometimes and can also attract people to improperly do it. Well,
Anthony, I believe you listened to us, so some feedback might be entertaining from you as well, Anthony.
And this is why it's tough, because I don't feel like I'm attacking him, and yet inherently I am.
Yeah.
Right. So it's uncomfortable.
It was everything from him being totally fat adapted and his taking of ketones to, like, there's just so many things that it's like, you're right. It shouldn't be promoted for most.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to leave it at that.
I'm just going to say one last thing about it. So that whenever we have N of 1, as people would say, like, our sample size is 1 and everything that comes from it is anecdotal. And it's, I did this and this worked for me and I know this to be true. It's hard to recommend it to everyone, but that's what he does. I mean, maybe that's unfair, but he promotes it as gospel because he believes in it as gospel. And that is an admirable quality to have. But there are so many variables at play that it's really hard to discern what's right and what's wrong in terms of performance. And like, is he 100% fat adapted? Well, he's his own lab. We don't know. Is his use of nicotine helping him? Well, he's his own lab. We don't know. Is his use of LSD helping him? Well, he's his own psychologist. We don't know. But it's when people practice fringe activities and then promote them as gospel truth, it's really difficult to ever tell which of the thing is actually the thing. And he's so sure about everything. And it's part of why he's really, really good at what he does.
Underneath it all, regardless, trains his butt off with purpose. A lot of rhyme or reason to his physical training, right? Which will lead the way with anybody that's going to be an accomplished athlete. But we can move on. I'm glad we had this discussion about it because...
Well, there's no arguing the results that house has seen.
Right.
There's not.
Right. All right. For the sake of conversation, let's move on. Okay. Anthony, you'll have to get back to us. I'm sure if you don't listen, somebody will point you to this point in the episode, and we could talk it out. Brakken and you can talk it out. So Kevin Donahue. One takeaway I want to focus on only. That was so important for people to hear. One.
What is it?
You tell me. This is fun for me. I get to do this today. You get to guess.
I don't know. Because I feel like he's a mixture of so many things. I don't have one that stands out above the rest, other than maybe just like pure joy and passion for what he's doing.
Well, yeah, that's part of Kevin, of course.
So no, I don't know what the takeaway would be from that one. So how overall. Many?
So Kevin Donahue, very, very fit human being, just by the eye test, whatever that means, but also by the performance test. He's probably almost 50, probably is 50. And has been on how many Spartan podiums now, age group or otherwise?
It's over 100, right?
200th or 500th. I mean, something absurd. It's absurd. You know what? Just so I can look at this, and maybe it probably says in his bio, right? If I had that many podiums, I'd put it as a headline. You don't know where I'm going with this, but it's a very important message.
Okay.
153 age group wins. And he has 216 podiums. He's the most in the world out of anybody. Okay. This is important. 216 age group or pro podiums, 153 wins. How often do we tell people not to over race?
Weekly.
Okay. Can you think of somebody that might over race
100%.
or has over raced? Who? Kevin? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, he was racing back to back to back to back to back. I don't know, to the nth degree weekends in those East Coast races that happened all the time. Stacking podiums. I don't care the what or the why or the reasoning behind it, but we asked him about his training and how do you do that? His races were his training. He just got himself to the next start line and got himself to the next start line. You cannot possibly train like a badass and race like a badass if you are racing that frequently. And Kevin outlined, I basically get myself to homeostasis, maybe a little something in the middle of the week, not much. I mean, he's working out every day-ish, but nothing of substance as far as like output. Then he races. And the only way it's sustainable, you race every weekend, don't hire a coach. You're wasting their time and your money. The only way, if you want to race all the time, is the racing is your stimulus. It is your workout. It isn't big training session on Tuesday and then taper in and then race over the weekend both days and then do it all again. You will end up upside down, backwards, and burnt to a crisp. He basically outlined, like, I take care of my body, I strength train, I do a little running, and then I hit the hammer. I hit it hard on the weekend for the race. That's the only way it was sustainable. Mm-hmm. And it was a really important message.
I don't remember if it came up in that episode or not, but I tried writing his programming for a while.
Yeah, you did. You said that either to me offline or to him during that episode.
It didn't work.
Why didn't it work?
I was not capable of doing it. He wasn't capable of following the type of training I thought was best. And I wasn't capable of coming up with a good enough compromise between what I thought was best practice and what he would find palatable. I couldn't do it. I couldn't come up with the right mixture for him. And what it came down to is that I was never going to know his race effort and his body feeling throughout the week as intimately as he would. And I would never be able to predictively write workouts better than he could intuitively train himself with that level of racing. Because every race had a different toll on his body, and every Wednesday he felt differently. And he could feel it and he could adapt. And with his racing goals, he was more effective at the wheel than I was.
Yeah. I think you pretty much talked about all that on the episode.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you held that back. Now, sustainability wise, I think that is your only approach. If you're somebody who needs to rack up 10 times trifecta or you need to race every weekend, any race you can find, local road race in your area. You can't train like a badass on Tuesday and then race your best on Saturday and repeat that over and over. Not possible. I'm telling you, it's not possible. Kevin Donahue, I don't know if you listen, I doubt it. I also believe Kevin Donahue's never reached his actual potential for metrics, ever.
Right.
Because of this. He's good enough and trains well enough and is smart enough and talented enough and available enough that he can show up and podium because he's very good at the level he competes at. But also the caveat is he's never seen his true potential. Right. Most likely. That's really it.
In another sense, he's seen his longevity potential.
That's a good point.
Like he saw his frequency potential by not reaching any one individual metric of potential. You're right. Yeah. But I've just never really thought of it the other way. Like he might have maxed out his availability potential, frequency of availability by sacrificing ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you're a person who over races, whatever that means, tries to race every weekend or every other weekend, it might be a good episode to listen to. We get into a lot of fringe stuff and broadcasting stuff with him and other stuff, which is just fun to talk to him about. But that's it. The main takeaway was that.
Okay, so I have a question for you. If you were in a Kevin Donahue-like situation where you could get by many times with 9 out of 10 efforts, those 9/10 races, sometimes even in the 8s, but mostly 9s, you're going to find yourself in some battles sometimes, but you're going to live to fight another day more often than not in races. If you just focused on that as your main fitness mover, and the week was only spent supporting that, how many weekends a year could you compete?
40. I need a few weeks off here and there because of life balance and holidays.
If that didn't matter, if life balance and holidays didn't matter, if it was purely a fatigue and energy,
I would look at it as a heavy training block, 2 or 3 weeks on, 1 week off. So what does that add up to?
Well, 2/3 of 52.
So whatever that number is.
Yeah.
What about you?
I was going to say 30. For sure, you could do every other weekend. Absolutely, without a doubt.
Yep.
But I think you could do more often. Every other weekend would be what? 26 races a year?
Yes, yeah. Yes, exactly.
So for sure, 30 to 35. Absolutely. You could push upwards of 40.
I mean, I remember having a stretch of 4 races in a row, 2017, and nailed, I mean, by my
Went
standards
to the well
at the time, and raced well and nailed them at one point. Lambeau Field Stadium race. I ran a 5K at home. Then I went to Palmerton, I think, and raced. And for me, had a good race at the time. Mm-hmm. But that would have run out pretty quick, for sure. But
yeah, but if you could back off one notch, you could do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So takeaway. That's my takeaway. And honestly, I skipped over like some fantastic conversations with some of the best athletes in the world and that we've spoken to. And the whole episode was full of gold. But if there's like, if I'm like, there's the thing that people need to hear again, this is just one of them that stands out. And some of the people, maybe we had a Ryan Atkins interview in year one. And of course, you listen to it, it's a fantastic conversation. Just thinking like, what do people still need to hear echoed again? And these are the things. So.
Yeah.
All right. I don't fault you if you don't remember this guest.
Was I on the episode?
You were on the episode, yeah.
Well, this puts me in a weird spot. You're expecting me to not know?
No, I'm not. But I scheduled it. It was in my circle. It was a long time ago. You'll know as soon as I talk about what we talked about. You have no question. I could even give this person's credentials, and they'd be like, "Oh, duh." But you do edit the episodes and put them up, so you probably, of course, you wouldn't forget, would you? I'm really setting you up here.
Yeah, you are.
Joey Keeler.
Okay.
Yeah? Do you remember who Joey Keeler is?
High school coach.
Okay, I guess I set you up for no reason.
How to race your best when it counts.
Race your best when it counts. Good job.
Thank you.
I have that book still sitting on my shelf in my bedroom. I have a bookshelf of running books, and he's in there. It's a great photo on the front of his book he wrote of a kid like, he's a high school coach, right? We did a coaches series, and we talked to Joey Keeler, was the high school coach we chatted with. And on the cover of his book is like Wayzata high school kid it's a local suburb of Minneapolis. And he is like emphatically crossing the finish. It's a real photo, not a stage. And he just won. And the kid behind him has his face in his hands, and he's just so distraught. It's like one of the best images ever captured on the cover of that book of like high school pure, anyways, running. But do you know what my takeaway was from that one?
I know what my takeaway was.
Yeah. What was it?
I wanted to argue him on a point, and the more I heard him talk, the more I thought, all right, you got me. I was arrogant and I thought I knew better, but yeah, I buy it. And that was sometimes the workout doesn't matter. Sometimes the planning.
My takeaway as well.
Yeah, you pick a workout sometimes and you convince people that it's the right one to do. We over program. We overthink and get too cute sometimes. And he would just intuitively pick workouts sometimes even out of a hat, because it was the act of working more than the workout that mattered.
I think he coached state champions, maybe a state champion team or two.
Yep.
Out of Rochester, Minnesota. I think he legitimately said out of a hat.
Yeah.
Like, I've got my corral of workouts that I believe in. And maybe you add a rep or two or take off depending on what part of the season it's in, or ask different expectations, but the workout itself doesn't matter. And we stress over it way too much.
Yeah. And anyone who didn't listen to that can understand why I wanted to fight that. As you hear this, you can be like, yeah, he's wrong. And then you just come along to realize, all right, I buy it. I'm on board. It may not be the way I would do it, but I can see that would work.
He was so laid back about his, right? Like his whole position on it was like, you want a laid back coach is like, we're going to get you, you're going to have a great race. It doesn't matter how we get there because we're going to, and we don't need to split hairs or thread the needle.
Getting people to believe and just work means as much as anything.
If that was our philosophy, we wouldn't have a podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, at our core, right? But it was sort of, I agree. At first I was like, really? Like, this is the guy's message sort of, or this is his approach. But the more you think about it and the more you dive into this world and understand how overcomplicated it can become, something very freeing about picking it out of the hat, literally. And what do? Okay. So the same workout week one of season, you end up doing the last week of season, but we reduced our run volume by a third and we tapered in the other things. The workout itself isn't what matters. Maybe we took a rep off or we had it one further day out, but it doesn't matter what that workout is. If the surround, you almost might be right on me. I was expecting phlegm to land on the camera there.
My lips at the last minute tried to reach out and grab that cough and bring it back in.
That was funny. I wish I could slow-mo that. That was good.
We probably can. I'll see if I can get a clip. Man, they are utterly without warning.
So the point of, do we really need to stress?
Yeah.
And split the hairs? Is the workout itself or all the other things surrounding the workout more important?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, and it also comes down to, are you doing everything else correctly? If you're not, then don't stress over it. Just work. It reminds me of the story. I may have said this on the podcast at some point in 500 episodes. I probably said it once, but there was this, and I'm going to butcher the story a little bit, but it's the takeaway that matters. There was this reigning world champion athlete, and the coaches overheard his coach talking before the race of what he was doing. And he heard that he did a bunch of 284 meter hill reps. And the coaches all these are world pro Olympic coaches. And they're talking like, what is the significance of the 284 distance? Like, this was at a time in history where people are exploring every option. It was during the EPO era. People are unturning every stone. And they debated back and forth about why that was the distance that this pro training camp settled upon. And the guy went out and won worlds that year. And maybe it was the Olympics. And afterwards, finally, a couple of them came up and asked them, they're like, why 284 meters? Like, we think we know why, but why? And he's like, because at 285, our hill ends.
Right.
And that may not be the exact meters it was, but the concept of, we had a 284 meter hill and we ran that as our workout. And sometimes it's really that simple.
Yeah, exactly. What do you know? Remember what athlete or where you heard that, or is that just like an anecdotal story?
I read it years and years ago, so no, I do not recall.
It wasn't fable. It was some sort of truth or stretched truth.
Allegedly.
Huh. Well, that outlines that well. And people want the weeds and they want the hair splitting and they want the exact, down to the needle point specificity and specific. And Joey, we did the coaches series and he was one, maybe he was the last. We interviewed, 6 coaches. He stood alone out of those 6 coaches. Right?
Yeah.
As in like sort of rebutting everything we had just talked about with other coaches. Not really forcefully, but just like, hey, no, none of that matters. Chill.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
It is.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that?
It's one of those moments where I realize sometimes like in life, we fight something for the sake of fighting it. I wanted to fight that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I prove him right or wrong. No, the guy's getting results. Let him have that.
Yeah.
And maybe take some of that with myself as well.
Next one. This next one, I firmly believe we could spend an entire episode on. I think he's been on twice, and I'll let you lead this one. Justin Hamilton.
I have no idea where you're going with this.
I mean, pick one of a dozen things.
I mean, the power of second chances and rebirth and atonement is huge. But I assume you meant from a running standpoint, which is, I'm going to say, even though people say it's not possible, the idea of bulletproofing your legs for the task through things other than just running, training specifically for the test in a way that you believe and can feel is getting your legs ready for the task.
Yes. And one more, the main one.
But
I think I'm screwing this up a little bit because I think in all reality, I think I'm trying to direct people to his second episode when we dove into the nuances of ultras and his tricks and tips and the things I had never thought of that he is just a master of. I think I secretly want people to end up there.
Okay.
We talk about, I guess, Anthony Kunkel in a very different way, like splitting the hairs on everything. Hunter McIntyre, all in, hair splitting as well. Justin Hamilton would be the ultra version of that with the nuances of the race day itself and being prepared for that.
Yeah.
And yes, Justin Hamilton basically turned into a full-blown alcoholic, was a police officer, got fired from the squad, I believe, correct, for boozing.
Hit and run, a traffic incident while drunk.
Very open about it. Kind of found his second chance. Not second chance, but found his outlet in running and then eventually ultra running. The amount one can be a student and an innovator to find out what works, how, and why. Intra-race, what needs to be done in a backyard ultra format so you can succeed. What needs to be done in a true 100-mile ultra so you can succeed. The things you don't think about that he thinks about and now has a plan for was next level.
Yeah.
And the main takeaway is mostly just what he spat at us. And I think, was it in the second episode with him we really dove into it?
Yeah, it was his ultra checklist, basically.
It was gold.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a 2023 episode then. But our first one with him with his story and then how he got himself to bulletproofing the descents were a huge part of his training. Like, you got to be ready for the descents. You got to be ready for the descents. That's what matters. That's what matters. I run my driveway up and down because it's the biggest and best descent I have. It doesn't matter. Like, he was about getting ready for the task at hand, descents, and then the other ways to train for that just to take the damage. So that takeaway was huge, but it was just like, it was takeaway after takeaway after takeaway after takeaway of how to perform on race day, on day of ultra.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else jump out at you?
No, I think you should just go listen to both Justin Hamilton interviews. Absolutely. But I have a follow-up to that. I don't know if you saw or are in contact with him ever, but he and I interact from time to time. In fact, just this week we've been, and he finally had closure on that traffic incident, and he's not going to be facing jail time. They've decided to, it's not thrown out because that's the wrong term, but he's going to move forward without any further repercussions.
Oh, that seems very delayed, huh?
Yeah, it was all delayed via COVID.
Oh, sure.
And like throughout this, like he's been in contact with the victim, and like they're not seeking to do much, so the case wasn't really on the burner for the county. But anyway, he has closure on this finally, at least from a legal standpoint. I don't know if you ever get full closure personally on that kind of thing, but legally it's over.
Well, that's great to hear. There's no ego with him. He was just as factual and as truthful as you can be. And then you start to just realize how much of a nerd scientist he has now become with his love for infatuation and pursuit of this. So just very worthwhile to go back and listen. I remember both times with him, it was one of the cases where I could just listen. Like if I could have just listened for the whole 2 hours, I was engaged on every word because he's a great storyteller. He's very interesting as far as his approaches. And so I just remember wanting to listen.
Yeah. I would just ask, we got to the end and I thought I could ask him about his next race to hear about. I just want to hear him tell his race stories.
Yeah. It's great about it.
Yeah, just this week, I reached out and asked him about the details of an ultra course. So I've heard it's highly technical. Do you know anything about it? He said, I haven't had anyone who ran it, but I trained someone who their training partner did it. Let me find out. And he said, this is what he said, but I'm going to ask a different guy who lives locally and he's going to let me know. And then he gave me like 2 or 3 different reports from people to kind of triangulate what the course could actually look like. He's just, like you said, egoless, selfless, and really just wants to help the ultra community.
What did he do on the treadmill as well? What was it?
It was his first 100, right? Was on the treadmill.
I think it was 100 miles on the treadmill, right?
Yeah.
Trying to break a record, 100-mile treadmill record.
Probably. He doesn't do anything small.
No. All right, I have 4 left, but I think we're going to have to cut it after 1 more.
Okay.
And I think I'm realizing with my list, some of these are just like, I'm trying to direct people to something they should listen to.
Okay.
Their general feelings as well about just reminders of life reminders, maybe not as much as concrete teachings. Nick Ryker part 2.
So part 2 is when we were talking about his next round of training after ulcerative colitis.
We talked about his health issues. He walked us through the story. He shed a few tears. It was a very nice conversation, honestly. Mm-hmm. But yes, it was the first time we just talked about Nick Ryker as an athlete. He was healthy, had not had an ulcerative colitis diagnosis. And then we talked to him after all the hardships. Yes.
I mean, my takeaway from him is just the lengths that people will go through to get things done. Like, what's your excuse for not getting your work done? His entire day had to be scripted around bathrooms, and thus his runs had to follow suit. It was just to me, it was like an eye-opening experience. And like, what's your excuse? Why am I not getting my run done? He can get it done, never being able to be more than 10 minutes from a toilet.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway?
My takeaway that all is not lost. All is not lost. You often say sometimes you envy those with tragedy because they have somewhere to draw from. Mm-hmm. You've said that before.
Yeah.
Not those words, maybe those words.
Like a more thoughtful version of that, probably.
I don't think so. But it was the sentiment that he did, keep showing up. If you remember, Nick changed his entire life to pursue Spartan and being a pro. It's all he wanted. I mean, he was so one-dimensional. And he recognized that only in hindsight, realizing, it was devastating. He was ruined emotionally, physically. Everything he cared about, his one-track mind and emotional devotion to it was taken away. Right at the beginning of season, if you remember, he tried to race a Jacksonville race, did okay. He was really coming onto the scene, and then rug was pulled out from underneath him. And just the trials and then the power of change of perspective. Mm-hmm. Coming back with a different perspective. And he's had a lot of success actually coming back. He was second at DECA World Champs. He's had some really good hybrid success, but not that he's Lance Armstrong, because he is not, and he's also not doping. I would assume, Nick, let us know.
I never would put anything past Nick Ryker.
That's true.
But if you're not on camera right now watching or on video, I'm smiling. Nick's a friend of ours.
But, Lance got cancer, went through treatment, came back 20 pounds lighter, mm-hmm. and ended up an aerobic monster, drugs or no drugs. And Nick sort of kind of had a little bit of that as well. It forced him to lose weight. It did, you go through the mud and maybe end up dry and clean on the other side. And not that that's exactly the case with him, but there were some blessings, I think, physically as well, a little bit with like structure, because he just had muscle on him, and he still does. He's gained most of it back. But for me, it was the power of like perspective, and like it stripped him down and broke him, and it allowed him to actually be happy in the sport. Mm-hmm. Instead of miserable. He talked about his race anxiety and all of that beforehand. And I think it put his rose-tinted glasses on with it all and allowed him to appreciate it for what it was versus being so full of pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had this thread on a few episodes where if you survive your great trial and tribulation, if you get through it, if you get through your crucible, you can draw from it afterwards. You're not the same person afterwards. And some people don't survive it whole, but if you get through it and you regain what you had, you also have something else along with it. We talked about it with him afterwards, and then a bit with you afterwards. Like, what are you going to do to someone like that with a mile to go? Like, what are you really going to do to dull their motivation to hurt in that final stretch to the finish? They've had to do that to get through their easy runs, to get back to being able to do an easy run. There's nothing you can do. You can beat them, but you have to beat them because they're done with that weakness. Like, they're not breakable anymore. You're going to beat them or you're not. They might break themselves, but you're not going to do it. There's something waiting for you if you get through the crucible.
So hang on. Trust. Show up.
You're right. Hope's not lost. It'll feel like it, and it may be a long way off. But if you get through it, oftentimes you're not a shell of yourself. You're something greater.
And that was Nick Ryker Part 2. I think the episode was labeled Nick Ryker Part 2. All right, we're not going to get to these three, but my last three on my list were Aaron Azar, Tyler Germain. and Chris Roglaski.
Okay.
But for another day.
You mind if I cap it then?
Yeah, do it.
All right. At the end of our coaching of each coaches special episode we did, where we did a coaches series, you mentioned it on here. You referenced it. We talked to several different coaches who all had different philosophies of training. You posed the same question to all of them. Do you remember the question you asked them all at the very end?
If you could have a coach, who would you hire?
Okay. The other question, if you could only blank or blank.
Oh, I think I asked if you could run blank amount of miles a week. Was that the question?
You either had unlimited miles you could run per week. This is all assuming the athlete stays healthy.
Yep.
Or you had to be capped at
30
miles a week, but you had unlimited intensity and speed work, and you could have any sessions you wanted. Which one would you choose? And then there's always like caveats to each one. You said, all right, you could do unlimited, but you can never work harder than threshold pace or marathon, but you'd let them keep whittling it down closer to closer. And all of them, despite protesting or hating it, all of them chose the same answer.
Yeah.
Which was volume of aerobic running. They wanted more. They wanted more intensity. They wanted to bargain for, well, can I at least do strides? Can I do a tempo run? Can I do hill work? They asked for more, but they wouldn't budge on the fact, even like the Rich Diaz and people of the world who are all about zones. They're all like, just give me unlimited volume.
You're going to go out and run. You're going to run relatively easy to moderate and you're capped there. And I still think that's your route to success.
They all said it. They even if they hemmed and hawed and fought it, they all wound up, just give me a giant engine. I'll figure out the rest. And I thought that was very powerful.
Yeah, we didn't realize in the beginning. I was like, okay, interesting. Coach 1 chose volume.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 and 3 and 4. We did 6 to 8 coaches. I don't remember. All right. So basically, you just want to remind people to put your running shoes on and go running.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like your statement before, like, don't overthink it. Let's just run. We're going to overthink it for you. You don't worry about it.
That's very true. All right. Well, hopefully people found benefit out of this. I'm guessing we should probably cut this right now and then maybe revisit this someday. We will say, but I think we did our job with going back and reminding people some lessons that were important.
Well, just like last time, thank you for these 500 and however many episodes now. 502?
I think so.
We're going to try to get to 1,000 and then go from there. But next week we have someone other than us. We have an interview coming to you next week after our training Tuesday, of course, and we'll see you then.
See you then, folks.